Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Leo out here with Stryke team. About to interview Joseph, a martial artist who I met back in like 2013. I did a martial art tournament against one of his students. Very high level martial artist, has been doing it for around 20 something years. Practically, one of the most experienced martial artists I've had a chance to train with on a personal level. We've been talking about for years, kind of meeting up and doing some work. We finally did. We talked. He was just talking to me about the different experiences he had, and I thought it'd be really beneficial for everybody to kind of listen to him talk about who he is, what he's done in the martial art world, and some of his personal expertise, which is how to use just kind of the stuff in your house that you can make for yourself or find and really stay in the top level of physical shape. Because outside of just being a high level martial artist, karateka, experience in Muay Thai, MMA, everything, but just his physical fitness program and what he's been able to do. So I'm just gonna have him come on, talk about himself, and share with everybody.
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Joseph, Joe Aesir. Yeah, so we met a long time ago at a karate tournament.
Yes.
Karate's my background. It's kind of my base, but I've really done a lot throughout the years. I started karate when I was about 3 years old. Bounced around, did a couple different styles there, started in point karate, then went to knockdown, went back to point style because there were no knockdown schools near me at the time. Eventually, I switched over and tried kickboxing. Really liked kickboxing, had fun. My coach made me box because coming from karate, my kicks were really good, but my hands, not so much.
That's the problem. Yep.
Right. So he made me box. Then a couple of us convinced our coach that we wanted to try Muay Thai. And so we did Muay Thai for a little bit. Then I ended up moving for university to go to college. No real kickboxing, no real Muay Thai, no real good karate around us. But we did have some MMA, and they asked me to come in to help teach the striking. Me and my infinite wisdom, I did. And they weren't great strikers because most of them didn't have training, but they got sick of getting beat up and said, hey, let's do MMA sparring. In my infinite wisdom, I said, yes, let's do it. So obviously, I got taken down, I got mounted, and I got punched in the face until I gave up. So then I decided to learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Did a couple wrestling practices with some friends and some good coaches, okay. But haven't done like a lot of wrestling, just really focusing on driving in some basics.
Okay. But what was the time frame for all these? Like, how long were you just doing karate? How long did it take before you moved over? And then how long were you doing all the ground stuff?
Okay, so karate, I started when I was 3, and basically been doing it on and I did it consistently pretty much most days of my life until I was about 14, 15.
Okay.
And then it became a little less frequent. I was doing it, I was training, and I was helping my dad teach at his small little school that he opened.
Okay.
Then at 18 is when I started kickboxing. 18 to 20, I think the whole time frame was like 2 to 2.5 years.
Okay.
I found a gym that I was training at. That's where I did kickboxing, boxing, Muay Thai during that time.
Okay.
Then I moved out to Monterey, and I ended up doing, had some people that I wanted to train with, and we did some small training, and that's when I got into MMA. But I wasn't really being trained in MMA very much. I was mostly coaching the kickboxing side, and they would show me some things every once in a while.
Okay.
When we met, I think right after we met is when I started jiu-jitsu.
Oh, okay. Oh, so it's still been it's still been a good amount of time.
Well, so jiu-jitsu is weird for me because I was at a school that was really, really bad.
Okay.
I got a blue belt in 4 months.
In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
In Brazilian jiu-jitsu because I was beating the instructor.
Okay, can we take a step back? I really thought Jiu-Jitsu was the only, like, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was the one style that had still had some immunity to this happening. Oh no.
The
Oh
same
no.
the same thing that happened to karate is happening to Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Don't tell. Oh no. That's awful.
So basically for like 3 years, about there, a buddy of mine and we bought mats and we taught ourselves jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
I'm a huge nerd, so I was fortunate.
Okay.
Basically, I would look at like high-level black belts and I'd watch the moves that they did, like how did they pass guard? And then I would drill how they would pass guard.
Okay.
And so I got better. It was good. But then I recently found the gym that I train at now, Elite Team Monterey.
Okay.
And the coach is phenomenal. Like for anybody who knows me from Elite Team, maybe sees this or whatever, I've watched good black belts from around the area come in, and I've watched my coach practice moves on them during live rolls.
Okay. So he's real good. He's high level. He's toying around with other black belts.
Like
He's high level.
Yeah, and he's a huge nerd as well. So like my game has taken a huge improvement. I'm a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay. Not a blue belt in 4 month style, but a real purple belt. Let's just make that clear, guys.
Yeah. So like I'm
legit purple belt now in jiu-jitsu. Not a blue belt in 4 months, kind of. Like,
yeah, I went from a blue belt in 4 months, kind of blue belt to yeah, I'm a real purple belt. We do open mats and we have purple belts that come in and I can hang with all of them. Okay. So it's really helped my game a lot. Good. So the last 2 years ish. Yeah. So last little over 2 years, minus, a pandemic. So
yeah, haven't really been able to slow everybody down a lot, especially in the jiu-jitsu world. It's hard, man. It's hard.
But yeah, so
I've had professional friends who have the money who have left the country so they could do their jiu-jitsu somewhere else.
Yeah, no, I 100% believe it.
It's wild, but people, I have some friends who went out to Mexico. Even though I don't even know if they have like a huge jiu-jitsu scene, but I have a couple friends who are pros who went out there. Because it's hard. I mean, you're stagnating. It's easier to do striking, on a bag, on a mat with pad work even and be wearing masks or whatever, but it's real difficult with.
Yeah, well, so you can like get a really good workout striking wise with pull noodles, right? Yeah. Cut a pull noodle. Now you have social distance because you're 6 feet apart. Yeah. But jiu-jitsu, right now, kind of one of the things we're looking at an Elite Team is possibly when we start to slowly be allowed to reopen is doing a dummy class. Where we basically just drill basics on dummies.
Okay.
And like, I know a lot of guys who are like, oh, I'm better than that. Like I'm a purple belt and I still go to beginners classes.
I do that same thing in Muay Thai.
Yeah.
And karate. I'll drop into the beginner class anytime.
Well, it's like the 80-20 rule. 80% of the success comes from 20% of your technique. No, that's you don't win fights very often because you have a really cool jump spinning hook kick. You win fights because your jab beats up the other guy who gets so frustrated that you can land your jump spinning hook kick.
Yeah. Yeah. So, no, that's very true. It's like basics wins fights. Basics win fights.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit of your history when it comes to just physical fitness. I know that's the main reason everyone's interested. So what's your physical fitness background, and show us some stuff.
So fitness wise, my dad helped open up a gym. So he was basically trading, he was doing like a skill swap. He was getting some personal training and he was teaching that guy karate.
Okay.
Specifically Enshin. So if anybody knows Enshin karate, it's like Kyokushin.
I do. Offshoot of Kyokushin. I actually read the founder of Enshin. I read his book.
Yeah, Joko Nanomiya. Yeah. So they went in and they opened up a small space together, and that space eventually grew, and they bought another an adjacent. It was originally like a small office space, and then they bought an adjacent office space to expand, and then eventually they bought another adjacent office space to expand. But so I started in there. That was like when I was 14, so freshman in high school.
Okay.
And starting in there, they started to show me stuff. And as the program grew, I started seeing like high school, college, professional athletes coming in.
Okay.
And eventually there was a change of owners, and they had a bigger athletic program. The one thing I will say is that in this gym, they eventually wanted to switch to a CrossFit program. So my first certification was in CrossFit.
Okay.
Which I may ruffle feathers, but I'm not too happy about.
Some people hate it, but I know some of one of the more famous martial arts gyms, CSA, they're CrossFit lovers. So, I don't totally bash on it, so I know some martial arts who are heavily into it.
Well, and basically what I would like for CrossFit, kind of before I get back on topic, is as with all training styles, there are pros and cons. And most people don't understand the pros and cons before they get into it.
Okay.
And so like CSA, I respect them. I love their program. But when I hear them talk about CrossFit as a program, they oversimplify CrossFit for strength conditioning. Like it makes sense why they would use it with their logic.
Okay.
But they're oversimplifying strength conditioning as an art to help an athlete.
Okay.
But yeah, so to kind of go back, I got CrossFit certified, and then I moved out to Monterey to go to college. My degree's in biology. Okay. But I did personal training for years to make money to help pay bills.
Okay.
During that time, I worked with a lot of regular clients, right? People who just wanted to be healthier. But then I'd have some people, because Monterey is a pretty small community. I'd have some people come in and be like, hey, like I heard you trained athletes, like what do you want? And so I did helped some guys get ready for like low-level pros and minor league football, helped some people get ready for college football. I had some amateur fighters. I had some guys who wanted to go pro in fighting, and help them out, try to get them physically fit. And it's kind of what I've been doing. And then my whole goal with the pandemic was, before the pandemic, was to start opening a strength conditioning program at the gym I train at.
Okay.
But we can't be open.
Yeah.
And it's also hard to build a business when you're like, yeah, so we don't really have access to a lot of equipment. We have to be outside. We have to wear a face mask. We have to be socially distanced. Come work out, guys. Like,
yeah, it's a lot. It's real hard.
Yeah. If you have a base, it's great. If you don't have a base, you're trying to build a base for your business, not great.
Yeah.
So I've been doing some online training. I have a few clients that I run through an app called Train Heroic.
Okay.
One of my programs that I run through Train Heroic is actually for combat athletes.
Okay.
So with that, and I can talk about that at the end too, but with that, I try to do because I am a huge believer in lifting weights.
Okay.
That's kind of where I set my base at.
Can we go into that a little bit? Because I mean, a lot of people, even in the martial art world, even now, think that that's awful for you as a martial artist.
Yeah. So flat out, lifting weights is not bad for you. It's good for you. No, so I'm a huge believer in lifting weights. Years of science, years of research, years of data, decades of data has shown that lifting weights is beneficial. The problem is, and this is a bigger problem in America, mm-hmm. and than some of the other places in the world, but the big problem is people look at weightlifting, like the Olympics, they look at powerlifting, and they look at bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Now, the goals of those programs are to lift as heavy a weight as possible, or to give your body so much volume that you can grow as big as possible. The latter is not good for sports, right? Or is not good for martial arts, because we generally have to have a weight class.
Yeah, there's weight classes, and there's also, everyone has that speed worry that it's going to make it slower. And obviously, I mean, with me, I'm a relatively small dude, but even as I've been getting older, and with the pandemic, I've gotten heavier than I've ever been. I'm currently trying to get back to my fight weight because I have a competition next month, and I'm, lifting, getting too big. I remember I always tell people when I'm done fighting, I'm gonna get swole, but I can't do it while I'm fighting because I'll end up short for my weight.
And so one of the things, right? So that's why the bodybuilding mindset and training style is just not great for most martial artists. Doing jujitsu, because I have to like choke people, right?
Yeah.
Crank. A curl is very similar. Like doing a hammer curl is very similar to choking somebody.
Okay.
So it does have some carryover there. Muay Thai, right? Being in this isometric clinch position, having a stronger bicep will help you. So sometimes like we push people, we pull people, and we're not using the whole body. We try to use as little of our mass to pull them off balance so we can be in a more stable position. So there's still a little bit of carryover, but the things that most people do is they do weightlifting and they do powerlifting.
Yeah.
Getting stronger and more powerful is great, but the amount of volume and stress that those guys put on their body to lift heavier weight isn't really conducive with going to Muay Thai practice, right? Doing an hour in the gym, hour and a half in the gym of snatches, and then front squats, and then maybe some push presses, and then whatever accessory work you have that day, and then trying to go to Muay Thai.
Yeah.
Right. And then another thing that we have to look at for powerlifting is not just the programming, is that my best deadlift was at 140. I haven't tested in a long time, but it was at 145 pounds. I deadlifted 405.
Okay.
And it sounds like a lot. It's not.
Okay. Well, it sounds like a lot to me, man. I don't
know. It's a lot for like an amateur athlete.
Okay.
But once you start getting to like the elite level athletes, it's not that much. But one of the things I will say is I could change my technique to lift more weight.
Okay.
I didn't get stronger.
You just changed your technique.
So we'll use John Jones as an example. Besides the fact that there might be some extracurriculars in there. We actually know there are extracurriculars in there.
I'm pretty sure there's some extracurriculars going on.
Yeah, he's got a few picograms. But one of the things that you could see is he deadlifted what's called conventional deadlifts.
Okay.
During his original strength training program. Now, we generally don't recommend conventional deadlifts for lanky guys like that because the way the levers are set up.
Okay.
You immediately see him get stronger by switching to a sumo deadlift.
You want to explain the difference for anyone who doesn't?
Basically, it's your legs. So a conventional deadlift is when you stand about shoulder width apart.
Okay.
And then sumo deadlift is when you go really, really wide. So you see those guys who set their feet up really wide. Their hands are between their hips.
Okay.
Yeah. So it just changes your levers. It slightly changes muscle recruitment from the movements.
Okay.
And so for him, he could immediately lift more weight just by changing technique.
Okay.
Did he get stronger?
No.
Did he lift more weight and put more stress on his body to keep the same strength? Yes.
Got you.
So he was basically punishing his body more to not get stronger.
Got you.
And so
that's the important differences of understanding kind of what you're doing and why you're doing it. So punish your body the least amount while gaining the most amount of strength, and not vice versa.
Yeah. So we basically break it down. So the way that I look at it is, and there's a couple of like logical fallacies here, and to kind of talk about my evolution in training and thinking.
Okay.
For athletes, I used to really look at the minimum effective dose. What is the least amount of work I can give you to get a response, right? What's the least stimulus I can give you to get an adaptation?
Okay.
Now, that's not always the best, though.
Why? So explain that again. So you're saying the least amount of stimulus I can give you to get. So you're saying what's the least? Are you saying the least damaging thing that I could do to you to get an effect, or the least amount of work? What do you?
Both.
Okay.
So let's take a squat.
Okay.
I generally like to program for beginners 3 sets of 5 reps for a squat.
Okay.
If you're focusing on getting strong. Now you could probably do 2 sets of 5 and get stronger. If you do 3 sets of 5, you'll probably get a little bit stronger, a little bit faster.
Okay.
If I give you 5 sets of 5, you'll probably get a little bit stronger, a little faster, but now we're seeing we're adding more and more fatigue.
Okay.
If I give you 8 sets of 5, well, that might be too much for your body to recover.
Got you. So you're trying to give them the most that you can give them while still letting their body recover so they can do their technique practice.
Yeah. So I'm looking at what is the minimum effective dose that I can give, and what is the maximum effective dose I can give. And I want you to fall somewhere in that window.
Got you. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. Because the one thing, a big mistake most people do, and this is why they don't see benefits lifting weights, is if you do karate, if you do Muay Thai, that's where you need to get better. If you are tired from your workout in the gym and you go to practice, you are not practicing 100%.
So it's more important that you get the high level of technique practice than is the pure strength and conditioning. So you want to get your strength and conditioning in, but not to a point where it's fatiguing you in your martial art practice later on.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. Now, obviously, like, you take everything that's said with a grain of salt, because there are times we do want to send you to practice a little bit fatigued.
Yeah. Gotcha.
But that's only when your skill base is big enough.
Gotcha.
People who learn skills tired suck.
That is true. That is true. You're naturally, if you're coming in, your arms already tired, you're going to start getting that droopy arm syndrome. Your hands are dropping below your chin. You're not going to be able to, and then you're doing repetition incorrectly, which is going to translate later into your fight. So that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, cause and lifting is a skill as well. Like, squats are good. Bad squats are bad. Right? Deadlifts are good. Overhead press, sprints are good. Bad reps of those are bad.
My bad. Got you.
And so it goes very much both ways, in that when I'm personally working with an athlete, if you're in fight camp, you are coming out of most of your practice, especially early on, right? Early on in the fight camp, you are leaving so many of your practices exhausted.
Yeah.
If you come to me, I have to look at that and go, okay, what can we do to get a response? But he needs to recover for practice tomorrow.
You know, this is actually something, this reminds me of something I heard that TJ Dillashaw does. Obviously, he had a little extra help as well.
Yeah. But, in the recovery department, especially.
Yeah. But from what I understand, when he was training, every morning, his strength and conditioning coach would have him check his pulse. I think it was his pulse. And pretty much they check his heartbeat before and after, and they get where he should be regularly. And pretty much if he was over a certain point, it's like, nah, your body's freaking out. No train today. So that's how he chose his rest days. He didn't have a set rest day. He did a physical check every morning and be like, nope, today's the rest day. I can see it. And then he relax. Yeah.
So you can look at really, like, and one of the things I want to do when I establish a program in Monterey is having a science background, is I'm looking to establish data for each person.
Okay.
Here are the data points we are working from. Here is what your 40-yard dash is. Here is what your broad jump is. If these aren't improving, our lifts don't matter. Here's what your resting heart rate is. A simple test you can do, and this actually works for just general stress, is your heart rate is variable throughout the day.
Okay.
Your heart rate is variable with your breath.
I didn't know that.
When you breathe in, your heart rate will tick up. When you exhale, your heart rate slows down.
Okay.
If you are not stressed, that stays normal. If you are extra stressed, and this is one of the ways we like you on your own could kind of manage your fatigue through like a tough camp. If you don't see that variability, that's showing a sign that you're not recovering and your body's stressed.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. I did not know that. That is something, because that's one of the things I'm looking to improve, which we talked about in my own personal training, is I'm trying to find a way to get stronger and faster and even more athletic without gaining mass, and trying to regulate and get, like you're saying, come at it from a data-driven approach. And I'm, just that's really what inspired me to kind of have this call. It's pick your brain on those things.
Yeah.
And kind of regulating that and checking myself in the mornings. I'm going to start doing that. Just checking my heartbeat, checking how I'm feeling, and kind of go about it in that way.
Yeah. So that's especially, like, I also want to say, for most people, being worried about adding mass, especially like in fight camps and stuff, really most of that comes down to how you eat.
Okay.
Genetics plays a huge role in how much mass you make, how much mass you gain. Like, I worked my whole first year and a half of training. I went from a very strong 132 to a very solid 145.
Okay.
And I was lifting, depending on how I felt, between 4 and 6 days a week. I was eating a minimum, I think, of 3,600 calories a day.
So you were catching that, as I like to call it. I caught that freshman 15 the right way, because that's how it was kind of for me.
Yeah. So that's just, I'm genetically, I'm a small person. Like, I graduated high school at 132 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, you gained what was that, 13 pounds in a year of hardcore, like, going at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's, I mean, for different people, different things, but for that amount of workout that you were putting in 9 days a week, that is kind of not a huge amount.
No. One of the things that, like, drive, right, ability all come into it, but one of the things that really kind of worked against me was genetics.
Yeah.
Especially for what I wanted to do. I'm through training, you can kind of figure out muscle fiber type, like how it's distributed across your body.
Okay.
It's not foolproof. Like, really, the only way to do it is to get a genetic test done. But
well, now we're talking muscle fiber type. We're gonna have to explain that to the people who don't understand. I know what it is, but everyone.
Yeah. So basically, you have fast twitch and slow twitch muscle fiber types. Now, fast and slow is kind of a misnomer. It's a misname. Really, what they should say is very powerful contractions that get tired really easy, and not as strong contractions that don't get tired.
Okay.
And then there's one hybrid we know for sure that's called, I believe they call it 2X now instead of 2B.
Okay.
And I believe they're starting to do research on what's called a 2C muscle fiber type.
Okay.
Because with damage, you kind of have like these satellite cells that'll pull in muscle fiber types and make weird hybrid muscle fiber types.
Okay.
Based on that, that's getting a little more complicated, but.
Well, I have a question. Have you ever read Kenichi, History's Strongest Disciple?
Ryuta Asamiya is my favorite character.
Yes, we talked about that.
Yeah, Ryuta is my favorite. That's Odin.
Huh?
Odin, the dude.
Yes.
So yes, I've read it. I've read it by saying, like, I have a favorite character, and it's.
Odin's your favorite. Odin's your favorite of all.
At the end, at first I don't really care for him, but at the end, he becomes my favorite.
I mean, okay. I mean, okay. He's cool. He's not my favorite, but he's cool. But no, my point though is Akasame. For those of you guys who don't know, this is a martial art manga. It takes a guy from like the very beginning and kind of learns martial arts, and he starts being a very, very normal, and by the end he's superhuman, at like every martial art manga on the planet. But one thing that's particular in this is they have this whole section where they're talking about muscle fibers. And so their jujitsu expert pretty much a big wrestler attacks him. He just holds off the wrestler like it's nothing, and he's just way stronger than the wrestler. And Kenichi is like, "How are you so strong, but you're skinny?" And they're going over, well, there's three type of muscle types, and they call it the fast twitch, the slow twitch, and the medium. And the medium, I think they call it pink muscle or whatever.
Yeah, so they had white, red, and pink.
Yeah, right, red, and pink. Yeah, and he's like, his whole body is pink. He's just a master of the mix. You can't tell by his body size, but he's actually super strong. And this whole thing,
which is a cool concept, but understand, like,
I know it doesn't exist in real life.
Well,
don't get me excited.
Like, but no, so the way they describe it, it doesn't exist. Like, the way they described it was like, yeah, he gets all the power of the fast twitch and all the endurance of the slow twitch and combines them. But really, it's like, yeah, when you get a hybrid muscle, like, yeah, it's a little bit, it's not as strong as the fast twitch and not as fatigue resistance as the slow twitch. So it's just kind of in the middle.
Okay. Which in reality, I mean, I don't know if that'd be as useful or if it'd be like less useful for fighting.
Well, so it depends.
Now we're getting the questionable science that we're all kind of guessing.
Yeah, right. Well, so we look at stuff like this, right? Because your fast twitch fatigues quicker. So think about fights. Maybe if you compete in camo, which is the MMA organization in California, it's 3 2-minute rounds, right? So maybe if you're predominantly fast twitch, you're good.
Yeah.
Because it's 2 minutes is really, like, with any amount of training, it's really not that long a time.
Yeah.
Right. But then you start going into
like
pro,
yeah.
And now it's 5 minutes and it's 3 5-minute rounds or 5 5-minute rounds. So you go to Pride where it's like a 20-minute round and a 10-minute round. And now you start to see, like, as the rounds get longer, maybe that hybrid fatigue resistant muscle would be a little more useful.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, there's not much you can do about changing that. So we just got to train
what you have
better.
Gotcha.
And we kind of got off top, like, to kind of bring it back to where we were is through training, I realized that I'm very dominantly type 1. Okay. I'm very dominantly endurance. So you can generally calculate your max weights based on how many reps you do. Okay. So you can look up a chart, and there's a couple different types of charts and calculators. But if my max squat is, to make the math easy, is 85 pounds. Or sorry, say I squat 85 pounds for 5 reps. That means my max squat should be around 100 pounds.
Okay.
Right. But for me, for most people, the higher volume you get, the less accurate it becomes. But when I was especially when I was training seriously all the time, I would put up numbers where it's like, I did this for 8. So it says my squat should be like 390 pounds. And then I'd go squat 320.
Got you. Okay.
So because I'm geared more towards endurance, that high volume stuff is misleading for the overall data.
Got you. Okay. So when you know you're an endurance athlete, do you bother kind of increasing the speed stuff, or would you recommend focusing in on what you're already kind of born to, or trying to because I'm pretty sure I'm predominantly fast twitch, and so I mean I'm not sure, I haven't taken a test, but I'm just judging by how I kind of have fought in the past. Is there I mean, obviously when you're fighting, you have to have endurance, but for someone in your situation where you're an endurance athlete naturally, that's probably not the case, too much of an issue for you. Do you bother to really work on a lot of speed increasing stuff, or do you just hone in on what your specialty is?
So to actually look at this, I'm weird, right? I don't like to use myself as an example because I have obviously my ego and my goals might be different.
Got you.
But I mostly look at the athlete himself. How do they perform, and how are they trying to perform is a way to look at it. I had a guy come in and he's like, I'm not super big. He competed in jiu-jitsu at 155. He wasn't super strong.
Okay.
And he said, I want to get up to 170, get strong, and then cut back down to 155 for competitions.
Okay.
I watched him roll and I said, you shouldn't do that. And he goes, well, why? And I was like, you should try to get stronger. But if you go to 170 and have to cut to 155, you're going to affect your endurance.
Okay.
Watching him roll, he was just go, 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 go. He would basically smother you. Like he would get you exhausted before he took, before he tried to like take a submission.
Got you. Okay.
Now for him, I would really push his conditioning. I would work his strength, but I wouldn't have him try to super bulk so that he can get bigger and stronger because he lifted weights. And unfortunately for jiu-jitsu, he was still weak.
Okay.
So it just shows me that genetically, he's not going to be as strong as a lot of the people. We are going to get him stronger and more powerful, but we are not going to do it in a way that takes away his major strength because his conditioning was just phenomenal. I've never seen him tired.
Got you. So he doesn't have, got you. He's okay. So yeah, that's a frightening thing. And honestly, like you made me think of Khabib for a second, but it's interesting because Khabib kind of has both of those things. He doesn't get tired, but he also has that creepy, crazy strength.
Yes.
But I can definitely see, especially on just a guy, you guys just scrambling on you, tiring you out. If you can wear the guy down, you're skilled enough. Yeah. Well,
and Khabib is interesting because it's not so much like, I don't want to say he has no endurance. Like, it's not that he doesn't have endurance because he has high level endurance.
Yeah.
But if you watch him, when he gets his hands on people, he's so much stronger than people. They have to waste so much extra energy. And then when he does his Khabib time, when he figure fours his legs around your legs and like latches on,
yeah,
he's basically going to a very strong position that he can rest in.
So he just has a high ability to chill out, kind of. He's chilling, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and so that's like we talk about strength conditioning, and that's another aspect of actual strength and conditioning is economy.
Okay.
Economy of movement. And he's so good at the things he does that his economy of movement, or really his economy in those positions, is just far superior to anybody else as well.
Okay.
Because like, so I do some sparring every once in a while right now, or pre-pandemic kickboxing. And a lot of the guys that I went with were in much better shape than me, but they always got gassed. It's not because my conditioning is better than theirs. Those guys' conditioning was way better than mine, but I'm more efficient. I am more relaxed when I need to be relaxed. And I build tension better when I need to build tension, and I build it quicker. So I'm in a tense state for a less amount of time.
No, that makes sense. One of my Muay Thai instructors went to Thailand, and his instructor over there, and actually not even him. I think there was another story where it was GSP was talking about actually practically the exact same story. I think they're practically super similar. So he had a Muay Thai coach with the same kind of thing. Smoked all the time, fat dude, didn't work out, didn't run, but could beat everybody. And he'd be the last one. If it was sparring, he'd be the last one on the mat. Like he never got tired, even though if you think about it, he's the most unhealthy guy there.
Yeah.
He can just go nonstop. And it's economy of movement. I remember GSP was talking about how that's something why he thinks that is way more important than actual strength conditioning. And one of my instructors has practically the same story, but a different guy. So this is where like I, as a coach, as a strength conditioning coach, I look at all these different fields. My biggest influence, I would say, is the Olympic track and field athletes of the Eastern Bloc in the 80s and the 90s. Okay.
Their training programs were by far some of the best that I've ever seen. And we're like, literally, it was so great that we knew about it, but like people are now rediscovering it, and it's changing like whole teams and whole programs. They're like, oh, look at Verkhoshansky's work. Oh, let's look at Werner Gunther and look at his training style. And oh my gosh, like look at how he trained. And you're like, Werner Gunther was in the 90s. We're in 2020.
Yeah.
Like, how are you just finding this?
Yeah.
Um, and so that's the biggest influence on me. But one of the things I look at is, as we've seen the strength and conditioning community, because of Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, go really heavy towards lifting the heaviest weight you possibly can, we've seen a counter movement of people who only focus on movement.
Yeah.
Well, calisthenics, but calisthenics is also a form of weightlifting. You're just using your body.
Got you. Okay.
Right. We're seeing people go towards movement training.
Like
I don't
Ido Portal kind of?
Kind of, but even Ido Portal is more on the calisthenic style, where they do movement, but a lot of it is also like weird, crazy holds where your arm is in an awkward position supporting all your body weight. We're seeing people who are less focused on lifting and moving heavy weights, and more just their entire training program is 100% being super conscious about how you move.
Okay.
You know what? I don't personally agree with all of them. I take bits and pieces of what they teach, but if that's something that's interesting to somebody, you have GOTA.
Okay.
GOATA.
Okay.
You have functional patterns.
Okay.
You have Weck method with David Weck.
Okay.
In my opinion, those people take one aspect of strength and conditioning and they make their entire system around that.
Okay.
So I do take information from them. I do look at what they're doing and try to incorporate it into how I train and how I program people. But I wouldn't say they're complete programs.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's more something that is an addition, not by itself, but something you can add into your practice to kind of help you out.
I mean, really depends. This is where like I strength and conditioning and programming and stuff like that, I call it an art and a science.
Got you.
It's not just me, right? A lot of people call it an art and a science.
Yeah. There
is science, and the science is really what should guide your practice. But there's an art, and this is where we can also tie back in like my opinions on CrossFit. I could write the 100% best, most perfect training program for you. But if you don't follow it and you don't do it because you don't like it, it's not as useful for you. But if you like CrossFit, even like without saying uncertainty, say for the sake of this, my program is better than any CrossFit program.
Okay. If
you'll stick to CrossFit, but you won't stick to mine, CrossFit will be better for you.
Got you. So part of it is about, I mean, at the end of the day, consistency. I remember someone had asked, I believe it was Ian Abernathy, one of my favorite karate guys.
Yeah.
He had asked, I think he had done some kind of questionnaire thing about what's the best karate or best martial art. And not even just him, I'm pretty sure Sensei Seth and Jesse Ankamp and all of them have gotten the same question. And a lot of them will say an answer along the lines of whichever martial art you're going to stick with.
Yeah.
You know, like the best one for you is whichever one you're going to continue to black belt. Like if you're going to be like, well, I want to be if you want to be good with your hands, great. I mean, obviously, if you want to be able to get just punching people with your hands, obviously I'm going to send you to boxing. But if you really prefer, like if you're having more fun kicking people, maybe you need to be in Taekwondo,
Yep.
Like it just, whatever you're going to stick with. And that makes sense when you're looking at strength and conditioning. It's sometimes, because I'm going to tell you right now, I hate running with a passion that is so strong. I have to force myself to get out. And I've been trying to look at, because I know certain like Cody Garbrandt and Connor don't really run. They do other stuff for their, now Connor may not be the greatest example, but Cody makes it all 5 rounds when he goes 5. And so I've been looking at what they do.
So running, like I'm with you, I hate running.
Yeah.
So again, we have to look at pro cons though.
Okay.
If you look at McGregor's, McGregor Fast, whatever his new program is, a lot of it is on the assault bike.
Okay.
Right? Or the Aerodyne, right? The bike that you have the handles that has a fan.
Yeah.
Now, this is where we talk about going back and looking at science.
Okay.
I'm also looking at things like tendon strength, right? Now, tendons need a specific type of training for the best response. If you lift weights, your tendons will get stronger,
Okay.
but plyometrics and sprints and things like that will help them even more.
Okay.
What that means is we've seen this in some research that if you take your conditioning and you do equal amount of conditioning, and you take two groups and one group runs and one group does the assault bike, the group that runs has a stronger Achilles tendon.
Ah, and there we go. Back to running, my mortal enemy.
You could do the same thing though with jump rope.
Okay.
But you're going to build better tendon health greatly at the ankle, but even at the knees, because you have a plyometric type impact, like a bouncing type impact where you have to absorb force, where when you're on a bike, you don't have that. It's much more like a squat where your muscle is just producing force.
Okay.
And if you really hate running, my recommendation, and this is how I basically do all my running now, and I also hate running, is Dr. Phil Maffetone's Math 180 method.
Okay, what is this?
Get yourself a heart rate monitor, 180 minus your age, and then you can -5 if you're new to, -5 if you're, oh gosh, it's been so long. I have the numbers just written down. I don't memorize them. But basically you add pluses or minuses based on how new you are to this training, or are you experienced marathon runner, then you can run at a higher pace, higher intensity. Were you sick recently? Well, then you should run at a lower pace. And what I like is that it's generally, most people do the 220 minus your age, and then they might do a percentage based off that. But what I find is with the Math 180 method, I have to walk. And the reason why that's a good thing is because I'm putting less stress on my body, and my body's becoming more efficient.
Okay.
One of the guys that I did, a couple of the guys that I put this through, they were runners. And what we found is they would run 8 weeks. We did 8 weeks on this program. And what we found was they would run 5 miles. They were running 5Ks.
Okay.
And they would do a 5K in, I think one of the guys was like 18 minutes. That's all right. It's a good 5K.
That's 6-minute miles practically. 5K is like 3 miles, right?
Yeah. So, but the reason why I say it's okay is like, that's the 5K that I ran. And there are guys who like, especially because these guys wanted to run, it wasn't all that great. But what we found was his 5K time, he like originally completed it and his heart rate was something like 175, 170.
Okay.
He completed the same time for his 5K, so same distance, same time, but his heart rate had dropped by like 12 beats per minute. So he was using less energy to run the same speed. So we know that we could get him to run faster as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that method kind of gets you to be at your most efficient.
Yes.
Got you.
And that's where a lot of people, like when I boxed, right? Our coach would be like, all right, you got an hour, run 8 miles.
Got you.
And you're just balls out running hard.
Yeah.
Well, when you start to put all that on top of your boxing training, and then if you're in a gym that does strength and conditioning,
then you're starting to get messed up.
Layers and layers of fatigue adding up, right? So you get a bad night's sleep, you're more likely to get injured.
Gotcha.
Do all that. So if you change your running style, I'm not saying there isn't a place for balls out running. Like there are times you need to do balls out running.
Yeah.
But all of it also depends on what kind of training block you have. Where are you at in your training block?
Okay. So define training blocks now for those who.
Yeah. So when we do training blocks, so this is also an issue with a lot of private strength conditioning coaches.
Okay.
If you're not in a program, like they tend to have their training block, like here's the goal of our training. Here's what you're going to do for this 4-week period, 6-week period, whatever. 4 seems to be nice for people because it's a month.
Okay.
I prefer 6-week training blocks, personally.
Okay.
But if you have a good coach who's involved in your program, they are looking at what is your goal of your, like, I'm going to use you as an example. What is your goal of Muay Thai practice during the next 4 weeks, 6 weeks? What is the workload of your Muay Thai practice for the next 6 weeks? What do you want out of your strength and conditioning? Now let's look at all this and how do we do it? You need to build power. Okay, so we're going to build power, but you also need endurance. So we're going to do a kind of a contrast training, hybrid model. What is it? There's a name for this that's blanking on me right now. It's not contrast. It'll come to me like in the middle when I'm saying it. But basically strength training and endurance training. Gotcha. So we'd follow a hybrid model like that.
Okay.
But then we'd have to gear that 6 weeks around your Muay Thai practice so that you are recovering from your runs and recovering from strength training.
Got you.
And then maybe the next 6 weeks, we need to get you faster for your movements. So then we focus on speed.
Okay.
Right. So but you can't train everything at once. You're not going to get bigger, stronger, faster, more powerful, better endurance
at the same time.
Gotcha. Or if you do, it's all going to go up so slow you're barely going to notice.
Okay. So you want to focus. So like if you're, so say for my situation, I'm fighting. Let me find the date. I'm fighting in, I think 3 weeks. 2.5 weeks. So my whole focus right now is mostly on getting my cardiovascular back to like its top performance level. Would that be just only focus on endurance, forget the strength stuff?
So really what we would do, so if I had you for a camp, we would be heavy strength power early on.
Okay.
Like weeks 8 to 5, 8 to 6, 8 to 5, 2-3 weeks. Camps are weird because really fight camps are too short.
Yeah.
For a strength conditioning perspective, they're too short.
Okay.
So we're not going to get tons of adaptations out of you as if we would out of camp, but weeks 8, 7, and 6, I would have you going strength and power, and then we'd like alternate with conditioning days.
Okay.
And then as we kind of go weeks 5, 4, 3, we're going to start lowering and we're going to start working power, but maybe not like heavy power, because we kind of break it as a spectrum where there's strength speed, there's power, there's speed strength, and there's speed.
Okay.
The heavier the weight, the more strength is involved. The lower the weight, the more speed is involved, and you're somewhere on this spectrum.
Got you. Okay.
And to look at it is we start you at strength and like strength speed, and then we slowly take you down through this curve until we're focusing mostly on speed, strength, and speed. And then the endurance would become more specific to your sport.
Okay.
Running is great, but running is about building a base. It doesn't teach you much about conditioning for a Muay Thai fight.
Got you.
So right now, if you're trying to get your power and your endurance on base, I don't want to give away my secrets, but
if you don't want to give it away now.
So here's my conditioning program that I give to anybody, especially in striking sports.
Okay.
And this is what we do. A lot of class, like when I'm teaching at the end of classes for people who want to compete, this is what we do. Set your, how long are your rounds that you're fighting?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. So you have 3 2-minute rounds?
Yep.
So you're going to set a timer for 3 2-minute rounds.
Okay.
With a minute break in between.
Yep.
Your goal, it's Muay Thai, so your goal is going to be maintaining between 180 and 200 strikes per round.
Got you. That's actually something. That's what I did for my last fight, and it worked well. It wasn't that many. I guess I obviously shot a little low, but I said make sure I throw at least 50 kicks and 100 punches.
Yeah, and so that's a way to do it. The way that and this is like I was very fortunate because my kickboxing coach liked strength conditioning science.
Okay.
So one of the things he did was he watched fights with high volume.
Okay.
Like, so you look at like, it's not, I don't think it's Nate or Nick Diaz anymore. I think they just got, in the last like 2 years, they just got removed from the throne, but most strikes thrown in a single round.
Okay.
You take that number for MMA, and then he had a little fake formula he did to calculate how many strikes a second you should be throwing.
Okay.
Because the heavy bag is not like a fight, right?
Yeah.
You're not taking hits that lose energy. You're not missing, which wastes more energy than connecting.
Got you.
So he's like, you need to be able to keep up the most volume ever thrown in a fight. And these aren't tip tappies.
Yeah.
Right? This is like, I'm not Wing Chun punching it as fast as I can.
Yeah.
Like I'm setting on it and I'll like double tap on a light jab, like double light jab.
Yeah.
And then sit on a really hard 1-2.
Got you.
And then you try to still keep defensive minded. So you pull your hands up, you roll, right? Move your feet around the bag.
Okay.
But the goal is to sustain volume. And then your minute break, you don't get to sit down. You got to walk. And control your breathing.
Okay.
We're basically stressing your system to a greater level than it should see in a fight.
Got you. Okay.
Now this really works when you have a friend there who has a clicker who literally counts all your punches.
So then
that's what we had.
That's beautiful.
So we had somebody who'd sit there and just click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that way you didn't lose, like I didn't lose count. I didn't have to sit there and think like, was I on 160 or
yeah. Okay.
You don't start, you obviously stop going like 51, 52, and you start going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 60. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
And then you lose count. But so we have somebody click there. And for me, especially, right, I'm when I train for it, I'm really good at endurance and conditioning.
Okay.
This just like, I wouldn't get tired.
I like it. That's actually something I did before, but I took boxing. I took them at, like Manny Pacquiao. How many punches is he throwing in a round on average? And I think that's somehow where I got my numbers from that I used. But obviously, I should have done Muay Thai since that's what I compete in. I don't know why I just hopped to Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah. So, and then kind of that's going to train most of what taxes your system. But remember, Muay Thai and boxing are different in that we don't need just kind of like repeated effort.
Yeah.
We need sustained isometric efforts because we're clinching and we're pummeling.
Too. That's a good point. And
so when we talk about building efficiency, I also need your body to become more efficient at maintaining an isometric contraction. Isometric contraction, right? For those that don't know, we have 3 contractions. Concentric is when you flex, like you contract the muscle and the muscle shortens. Eccentric is when you contract the muscle, but it still gets longer.
Okay.
And then isometric is when you contract the muscle, but it stays the same.
Gotcha.
And for Muay Thai, when you're in the clinch controlling somebody or pummeling to any kind of the modified clinches, when you start to lock in to control them, you're now in an isometric contraction.
Gotcha.
Right? And so for a lot of people, that's where they get gassed out, because while we were training conditioning, we were training kind of like systemic conditioning, the whole body.
Yeah.
And you're probably going to gas out in like your biceps and your shoulders when you're pummeling in your forearms. And that's local fatigue that we also have to manage.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a very interesting whole breakdown of what I needed. Sadly, I have another appointment I got to do in a second, so I have to hop off, but would you mind doing a part 2?
I would love to, where we can actually, a part 2 where we can actually get to like
the workouts,
the workout and the training. Like,
yeah.
That'd be great. I would love to, because this was very like philosophical.
Yes.
Like these are things you need to, like, these are things that will help a coach or somebody guide themselves in training.
But we didn't go over any technique at all.
But we didn't go over like, yeah. So now they have an idea of like what they should do, but they don't know how to do it yet.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, I promise you when we planned this, we were supposed to be going into the techniques too, and this just got into a whole long conversation. I liked it though. This is definitely good.
you can blame him because a lot of it became about like, what should I be doing near the end? Like, no, but
listen, I got a little selfish. I got a little selfish in here.
No, and that's it. Like, one of the things that, especially for like building, for people like really paying attention, is how does it apply to you?
Yeah.
Right. There's going to be somebody who is in a similar situation as you, and they're like, oh, I need to work on my conditioning. And they're like, oh, that's all I have to do. Like, I mean, that's not all you have to do, but, oh, I can add those in right now.
Yeah.
And then, yeah. So if people like this, they should hit me up on Instagram.
Yes, I will add. So when I get this together, I'm gonna put a little, a little logo. I'll put your Instagram on there. If you have any place they can reach out to in particular to like learn how to get strength and conditioning from you, or anyone else you want to like give shout outs to in any way, shape, or form, I'll put them right there in the link so they can all come out and reach out to you.
Yeah. The only thing I would like to say for the last little bit is if anybody is interested, I use an app called Train Heroic for remote clients. This is for people who maybe can't get in with a coach right now, or they just don't have a schedule where they can do it. It's geared towards lifting weights, but what I do is in all the lifting weight movements, I give a body weight option. Like, oh, you can't do squats. Here's a try to do a seated box squat. So that way you can do a one-legged seated box squat, and it's really hard, but maybe you're strong enough that you can grab like a backpack or a gallon of milk and make it harder. So I try to do that. When they do go to my Instagram, jseer.ragnarok.
Now we know why Odin's his favorite character, guys. Now we know. That's
the
reason.
I mean, I have a Viking compass. But yeah, I have a link in my bio. They can always reach out to me. My Instagram right now is really geared towards building information people can take. So one of the things I'm doing is I'm looking at movements, and I give like a baseline movement, like a deadlift. Mm-hmm. And then I'll do a beginner movement, like this is how I teach it. And then I'll do an advanced version of it. Like, once you have a good, strong deadlift, here's how we make the deadlift more applicable to your sport.
Gotcha.
So right now, my Instagram, I have a website, but it really needs to be worked on. I was going to like update it and make it look good with being in the gym, but quarantine. So it's very basic right now. Yeah, that's kind of.
It's all good. I liked it. I mean, I encourage you guys to go out, follow him on Instagram, reach out to him, get your guys some personal training in. If you're looking to stay in shape during, the times we live in, this is a great way to do it. Obviously, he knows what he's talking about. We just had this whole philosophical debate, and we'll schedule another one. Like I said, where we can continue and actually break down some techniques for you guys on the next one. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
Later.
Bye.
Hey, what's up, guys? I totally forgot. My bad. Like, subscribe, turn on your notifications, follow me on Instagram on my personal page and on the page for Stryke Team Official, so you can stay up to date with what we're doing, when we post, and what's coming out next. All right. Thank you.